Well, good afternoon, everyone. I think the sun is shining in now, and we're all getting the sun rays. I hope you all can see me, but please don't fall asleep. I know you all had lunches full. I had mine as well. Well, pleased to be with you today to talk about this particular topic. How can FM add value and transform culture? Well, I guess, how do we define value in FM terms? Are there different aspects of value? A tangible value, perhaps, to meet the financial bottom line. Efficiency, performances, maybe cheapest is best. What about the intangible values, where it draws on culture, behaviors, different ways of working? How should we then go about realizing the value of FM, creating those intangible values to make them tangible for the organizations in the current climate? I think we're all doing more with less. But I think now we have an opportunity to perhaps maybe, whether you're on the client side or supply side, to raise the profile of FM even further by reviewing our business strategies, looking inwards to redefine our purpose, and to develop and enhance that capability and re-engineer our business processes to reinforce the message. And I think this afternoon, just for the next few minutes, I'll share with you some of my experiences on how we're looking to add value in our FM culture here in the NHS, and examples of where we have transformed culture as well, and hopefully you can relate it to as we go along. But before we delve into NHS Grampian, I think it's important that we take a look on the external environment and the pressures facing and ultimately driving that direction of travel for NHS Grampian. Now, NHS Grampian is working towards supporting the quality strategies you can see that recognizes that patient experience of the NHS is more important than just about speedy treatment. It is the quality of care that matters most to them. And coupled to that, we have the 2020 vision that by the year 2020, the vision here is that everyone will be able to live longer and healthier lives in a homely setting. And this came by the single biggest reform to how health and social care is delivered in Scotland, where NHS and local council care services enter into one partnership arrangements for some of the regions in Scotland. So, same for Grampian here. Then we have the national clinical strategy too. So you can see it's all coming down online stream to the local management here that the national clinical strategy is asking us that it needs sustainable places. It needs to deliver health outcomes, increase that patient experience for better care. So to support that, the Scottish Government then says, okay, how do we do that? So we have the Health and Social Care Delivery Plan that was issued last year in December. But because of the resources that we've got, we have to work with what we've got. And unfortunately, the health and care in Grampian or perhaps in Scotland, in terms of the aging workforce, in terms of treatments, more hospital admissions, everything else over the next 20, 30 years, we have to adopt a once for Scotland approach whereby we work cross cultures into breaking down those geographical locations to actually make this sustainable. And that's where some of the initiatives at the moment nationally we're looking into shared services. So I'm sure some of these things will be practiced in England as well and in Wales. We're looking into some of the fleet, logistics, sterile services, and laundry and what have you. So I guess the question is, we've got the macro environment, so let's bring it down now and let's think about this in your own organization as well. Because I think a lot of the talk today has been a mixture of both. So let's think about that. Where does FM fit? So I think to know where FM fits, what I'd like to do is to take a moment to show you a brief video clip to help us see that ambitions of how we can deliver FM in healthcare and what it could look like to support that direction of travel.
Quality needs an appetite for excellence. And to be house proud. It needs a fresh start to each day. And a push in the right direction. Quality needs to find the correct tone. for clean and safe thinking. It needs to reduce waste and give an assurance of safety. Quality needs a safe pair of hands, which use the right tools for the trade. It needs a fresh focus on investment. And a framework for excellence. Quality needs assets that are maximized. And designs that are fit for purpose. It needs cutting-edge equipment. To go that extra mile. Quality needs to maintain the highest standards. And ensure compliance. It needs a sustainable vision for a renewable future. Quality needs to be person-centered. Effective and safe. Quality needs you.
You've seen, what we could potentially aspire to, and maybe some of us sitting here are at the top of your game, and maybe some of us here are trying to get there. But I think this is what our customers want to see, isn't it? What the users of the service wants to see as well. But can we achieve that in the current climate? How do we get there? And I think for NHS Grampian, I see 4 key enablers here that will help support our aspiration. So we have the national clinical strategy that we talked about earlier. So we have then the Grampian clinical strategy that tells us what the organization needs to do. So we need to shift that unscheduled care to more planned care, and from planned care to self-care, and from self-care to prevention. And is that basically shifting that balance of care from the acute hospitals all the way to the community? And we're supported by the asset management team, where we have the plan, tells us where we need to acquire our building, dispose, reinvest, as any surplus or property appraisals. And it's supported by the integration joint boards, where then the mixture around the social care services and NHS works together to try and prevent and provide healthcare services to any point in time in their journey. And I guess the missing link here is FM, isn't it? This is the opportunity for FM when I'm standing here today telling you that we need to support people in their work, in their activities, enhance the individual well-being, enable the organizer to deliver effective and responsive services. We need to sweat the physical assets we've got because we can't invest more and build more new buildings. We need to allow the future change to make use of that space and provide a competitive advantage, isn't it? And also to enhance the organization's culture and image. But I guess my question to you, and maybe to myself as well, what are our clients' perception of FM? Or what is your perception of FM? Is this it? Or is FM a lot more than that? Have our roles and responsibilities changed and diverse so much, working in silos that we're firefighting all the time, that our clients in our organization get confused, even maybe our staff? Are we still operating as a Cinderella service in some sectors? And can it be more strategic? And I think the answer is yes. I think we're all probably nodding here. Well, Professor Bevnut, once quoted that in one of his journals, the 4 competing futures of facilities management, that because of the rapid development in our FM profession over the last 30 years, FM now operates in an ever-widening, ill-defined sphere of activity, and is suffering from an acute identity crisis. I don't know if you think that's actually still the case today, where, in the workplace that you are at the moment. So I think in order for us to help rethink FM, we need to go back to the basics. Now, I'm going to bring up one slide here that I want you to kind of read about. But before that, I want to say something. There was a research carried out by 2 academics based in Shanghai, that from their research, they discovered that there are around 10 definitions of FM by scholars and 5 definitions in industry association at the time of writing in 2011. So can you imagine 15 definitions across the globe with varying differences and responsibilities about what FM means? Coupled with the rapid development since the 1980s, is it no wonder that our clients, and perhaps even us, gets confused? Yeah? But I am pleased to say, though, that now we have an international standard, an ISO 41011 2017, that tells us that FM is more than just a Cinderella service. And BIFM has formally adopted the definition of FM, as you can see from the screen here. So I'm not going to read through all that. If you just take a few moments just to glance it over. Has anyone seen the definition of FM, by the way? Yeah, probably. So that's what the ISO standard for FM is about. There are 2 standards that's been published. So this is the first one. And the further workings is to help define, for more about facilities management, such as the ISO 41012, that gives guidance around strategic sourcing and the developments of agreement, and that has now been published. So if you look onto the ISO website, you'll be able to see it. But what I'm looking forward to, though, is also the ISO standard 41001, and that's currently expected to be published in 2018. And that will set a common language for FM. And in Stan Mitchell's own words, he says, ISO 41001 will help to clarify the what as well as the why. Facilities management is a strategically important discipline to all the organization in the management, operation, and maintenance of the workplace. Now, I'm going to extrapolate some of those keywords for you. In simple terms, if you don't read that long list of words earlier, this is what it means. Okay, talk about integration. It's a multidisciplinary subject. It creates an environment. It can be strategic and operational. It adds value, improves productivity, supports and improves the quality of life, safe and efficient working environment, and it's a professional management discipline. So we've got all of these things, but so what are the key enablers then, to achieve these key result areas? For me and for our sector, I see an opportunity to develop and build the ICF, an in-house capability to support the sector to try and achieve these key result areas and to drive that value to our client organization. So you may ask me, what is the ICF? Well, I think we know about what the ICF means. It's the intelligent client function. And a lot about it has been written in many ways, and Wikipedia, I think, says it very, very clearly and accurately for me. It says that it's an in-house capability within a host organization which has responsibility for the ownership, management, and delivery of a defined service or range of services on behalf of part or all of the organization to that organization. I think for us, if we have FM services within our client organization, we might call ourselves an ICF or a business support unit kind of thing to support the organization there. So Brian Atkins and Adrian Brooks also wrote about that as well, that we need to be seen to deliver that customer satisfaction and achieve best value. And that is, irrespective of how our facilities are procured. So the ICF, talks about it. It's been talked about a lot. But what are some of the gaps then that could be detriment to the organization without the ICF? I put up this slide here just to give a bit of an example. If you can think about the plane as your FM organization or my FM sector, it has already taken off from its starting point. We're currently in flight mode, okay? We're trying to keep all the passengers in the cargo and the plane and be safe, whilst we're trying to wait patiently for our destination. And I think some of us in this room here are in this state, isn't it? We are in firefighting mode, flying mode, spinning lots of plates and demands, managing expectations, and we kind of know where we want to go. But the changing landscape just changes all the time, such as the NHS and the public sector, legislation comes in, more scrutiny, health and safety, becomes the flavor of the month. All of those things that we still need to keep our plates spinning. And furthermore, we need to increase our range as well, okay? Because if we don't do all these things, we will crash. So, these plates that you can see here are more or less the kind of ICF functions that we need to start building in order to keep flying, to maintain and improve. And I don't know much about engineering on planes, but I think, if you can think of the ICF like the engine, the fuel, the black box, the navigation systems, the data, the systems, and all the intricate details that goes along with it just to keep flying and increasing in its range, and it can help then us align to where we want to go, because we then know how well we are managing. And I think if we don't have these plates in place, then I guess the answer really will be negative perception, your reputational risks, your profit risk, if you're in a profit organization, lack of identity, confidence assurance, perhaps maybe a real risk to the organization that you're working for. So I think maybe just stop and think for a second, what's it like in your own organization just now? Are there some of these things that can be considered to maybe try and add value and change the culture of how FM is perceived and then be more client-focused driven? Because if we were to then implement the ICF, it might just be the opposite. It might look like this. We can understand the culture, market tests, because we've been more intelligent around doing that, have more audit and compliance, establish consistent standards across the piece. And I guess all of those things helps to optimize the systems and governance that you have in organizations and increase better quality, increase safety, and obviously reduce risk, and have that shared intelligence across your sector. So I guess, with regards to that, we need to then start to develop that sense of directional travel, isn't it? So with the enhanced ICF, we kind of know where we want to go. Let's have a model to think about how we can actually put this down in place. So what is it then, your long-term vision for your sector in the next 5 to 10 years? Do you know what that vision looks like? Do you know what your strategy is about? Can we maybe take this time to kind of refocus, redefine ourselves, because now we have an ISO standard that we can work from, okay? It's not anyone else's standard anymore, it's not some authors, it's a proper ISO standard. Can we then start to think about that and define our purpose? So, in the NHS, we have an aging population and aging workforce, and some of our workforce have been with us for about 30, 40 years, from trades all the way up to management. And some of us, like me, are newbies into the organization. Well, not really newbies here, but the thing is what I'm trying to get to here is how can we then help and try to translate those values of what we want to achieve to our language of FM. So, NHS Grampian values, caring, listening, improving. What does that mean then to FM sector that if you're working in? What about yourselves? How do you translate your clients' values to how you operate and deliver that service required? So probably if it's a frontline service as far as nursing is concerned, caring, listening, improving is actually quite straightforward, isn't it? But if you were then to think about it, caring, listening, improving, then to facilities management, then to your staff, cleaning the floor, or moving things from A to B, that mundane task, how does that get translated from there to there? Could it be as simple as good stewardship, entrusted to look after the organization so that care services can function? What about listening? Feedback on how we are improving? How can we do better to support the organization? And what about the key enablers to help improving that? The time taken to clean between bed discharges so that we can relieve the burden of nurses, so that it can enable them to deliver better care to the patients and overall enhance that patient experience. And I guess in terms of the supply side then, how do you embrace the core values of your client to then suit to help meet their needs? And I guess for us then, what we'd like to do in the next 6 months is really try to refocus, redefine that, because a lot of it is going on and I think we're all spinning plates. So the strategic delivery plan that we want to get to is thinking about the operating context, right? So we have the ISO standard, break it down into some of those keywords that we saw, and then think about the working assumptions. So we look at the first 2 slides, we kind of know where we want to go, right? Still don't know yet, so let's use that as a working assumptions for that, because we kind of know where we want to go. And then start thinking about the service goals, and also the capability goals of what you can actually do, and also what are some of the gaps that you currently are feeling. So to meet those things, in the next 6 months, what we like to do is to then think about having an integrated information plan. I'll expand more a little bit on that. I'm not sure about you, but I guess as far as our organization as large as the NHS is concerned, do you know where all of your assets are in all of your functions? I'm talking about soft and hard FM here. How are your jobs, your services workflow being dictated from the journey from A to Z to meet the customer's needs? Do you asset manage? And do you know how you can actually monitor your data completeness and integrity for your systems? Do you manage different systems? Is it multifaceted? It probably is. So I think for us, it's not about trying to fly. We need to walk. We need to try and gather what we need to know first so that we can prepare for that flight. And coupled to that is the risk and quality plan. And I think, in simple terms, really, how are we managing our risks at the moment? Yes, we can look at the risk registers, but are they the right risks on your register? Have they been, assessed in terms of, have they been assessed to your critical success factors of your sector? Have you identified those risks that you already have, or has it been there for the last 3 years? Is there a quality assurance and audit process going along with it in terms of how you manage your team to then ensure your senior management knows about your team is being managed at risk for them, and then to provide assurance up to the board? Is that sequence that you actually put in place as far as KPIs are concerned? And I think also in terms of the sector metrics, I think we're all very good at measuring things because this is how we survive. Are we capturing the right things? And in terms of the value that we need to meet for the organization, do you collect your data, in different ways? How are you pulling those things together? Are you benchmarking yourselves? And are you also facilitating a quality identification? And maybe there are opportunities that you need to think about. So we touch on performance and value metrics. Can I ask you, what do you see here? What do you see? Scoreboards, right? What do they have in common? Exactly, right? Jackie said winners or losers. Exactly. It tells you very quickly who's winning, who's losing, okay? And if you think about it, it's a very quick snap, and this is nothing controversial here. So that's NFL, American football, and that's Wimbledon tennis, and that's basketball. They're all talking about the same things. We know exactly what we're looking at, but do you see stats around the conditioning of the players? Do you see stats around the diet intake calculations or the exercise regime stats to actually achieve those things? Well, no. Whilst they are most important, but they're not the ultimate goals, right? They lead you to help achieve that goal. So I think sometimes, when we start measuring things, the development of that lead measure is often quite difficult to determine, isn't it? Because they're not a guarantee of success. But if we think about, the results and the outputs, for example, how many sales you've made the last month, and you measure those things. So they're just output. They're just the after-event measurements. And I'll take another analogy here. Maybe you say losing weight. Okay. So let's just say if you want to reduce weight from 85 kilograms to 75 kilograms by X, that's your end result. What do you need to do to achieve that? Do you simply weigh yourself on a weighing scale every single day, looking at it? Does that work? Does that help you lose weight? Maybe, maybe not. Or would you try to consume less than 2,000 calories per day, perhaps? Or maybe take up exercise regimes, or maybe healthier foods, an example. Those measures are predictive then as a result to help you achieve your end results. And that's what I'm talking about. And I think it needs to be balanced, obviously. You can't have all the lead measures trying to achieve a lag measure, perhaps, or an out goal without thinking this through. And I think that maybe the conclusion to that will be it needs to be simple, because we all don't have time. We're all running really busy. It needs to be highly visible to the players, right? So the players need to have the right measures And it tells us immediately whether we're winning or losing. Because people play differently. If they are the ones keeping their scores, right? They need to own it, and it's all about that engagement with your staff and also with your department, and then having accountability on top of that. So I guess for us at the sector, we try to do that. We try to develop a holistic approach around the current services that we currently have. Because remember, we are in flight mode. We're not starting from scratch. So we're already flying. We need to do something different. So we adopted a balanced scorecard model within the FM sector. I guess everyone knows about the balanced scorecard here, perhaps. And that is a challenge. That's a challenge because we're dealing with cultures all the time. And that is challenging, the things that people say, we've done this before, it doesn't work. We've got a t-shirt, why are you telling me what to do? To spending hours with them, with heads of services, to engage them, try to unpick and look into their value chain from the journey, from start to finish, to see what we can do and how we can help them align to the organization needs. Questions such as asking, it's as simple as fact-finding. What keeps you awake at night? What is the bread and butter of your business? What are your critical success factors? Maybe CFS is quite a buzzword for them. Break it down into more layman terms so they can understand what you're trying to do. And how then can we add value to the things that you're already not doing? All right? So I guess 3 years on for us, we created a balanced scorecard, and I guess everyone will have their own ways of doing it. But for us, this is just on a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet, right? It's macros and what have you. But we don't invest in the systems. We try to do what we've got. And I guess this is what we've come up to so far, and it's becoming a trend. And the scorecard was well received, and we've recently received a commendation from the chief exec. And other sectors are kind of leaning on to see how we're doing it. And it's really as simple as that, making sure that this is what counts. And these guys own, the scoreboards. And I guess another dimension to look into how FM can add value in culture really is people, isn't it? Yeah. At the heart of what we do, our staff, we've got to take our staff with us to inspire them, bring them along, so they can help to understand the broader picture of FM. So in NHS Scotland, we have the staff governance standard. That doesn't sound very, friendly, does it? Governance, but it's a standard here that actually focuses on how staff in the NHS in Scotland are managed or feel they are managed. And then I talked earlier at the panel discussion this morning about I Matter. So that I Matter here is actually something that we have to adopt and own, which is a very good tool. It's a continuous improvement tool that managers, staff, and staff side representatives actually got together to try and understand the experience of NHS staff at work. Because you know why? If experience at work can be understood at individual, team, and organizational level, then we can all work towards perhaps improving our experiences, isn't it? And then those of others at work. It will start a chain reaction. I'll share with you a couple more examples. So, what about out with the NHS? Where are the opportunities? We talked about World FM Day this morning. So, we were prompted by BIFM to see, can we support them by doing some case studies and putting some things across. So what we have done was, we've engaged domestic assistants, portering supervisors, and help desk operators. And that's Nina, Nina's with the help desk, and that's the one pushing the trolley, that's Lorna, that's portering supervisor, and that's Joanna, that's the domestic assistant there. We engage them to find out about their day in their life. Again, this is part of going back to valuing, and this is something you can do it yourself. You don't have to rely on once a year with World FM Day coming out and getting that template. Look into the templates online, take down those questions, and actually make it your own. And a part of that is to capture that staff, feeling valued. And let's go to some of the comments that they said. So when we asked Joanna, a domestic assistant, what do you enjoy most about your work? What did she say? I enjoy cleaning the patient's room and knowing that the patients and relatives can see that their rooms are clean and tidy and free from infection. I feel happy within myself knowing that the rooms are clean. What about Nina, the help desk operator? I think using the correct skills and the way you talk and deal with people, giving excellent customer service, it will help reduce the stress and problems that a person may have. And it's about building that relationship, being honest and proactive. Now, what about the portrait supervisor? And that's brilliant. And what keeps you motivated to go to work each day? And I think we can ask that about ourselves as well. And what's her response? A commitment to our community and patients. The hope that we're making a difference in people's lives. Now, how much more can you get from that? I mean, that's that's just the finale of it, isn't it, really? That, people come into work. Yes, the workplace, as far as environments are concerned, probably are always in this fast-paced mode. We can't do much to our environment because we have no investment, but the people here that are working in FM are feeling that value contribution because they know they're making a difference. What about then your management team? For us, believe it or not, we have a bi-monthly sort of facilities partnership group where managers and staff get together to discuss areas of concerns and what have you. But because some of these things, when we get together once bi-monthly, these hot topics become quite debative sometimes. And to be honest, sometimes the atmosphere in the room just shifts so quickly. You never know what's coming next, and they can go off in tangents, and staff's concerns were not heard. So what we tried to do was to turn on its head sometimes, put in, have the agenda set out, but have positive messages at the top, rather than at the bottom. So at the top, what are some of the positive messages that you can actually contribute, and people start sharing. And to be honest with you, when I first started out that initiative, it felt like it's too fluffy, Preston. We got more hot topics to talk about. Please don't come near us. But when after months of trying to get even people to change that mindset, people start putting in those contributions, and when we shout it out at the bi-monthly partnership group meeting, and guess what? The room just became contagious with more positive messages filling in. Because it's that sort of vacuum, isn't it, when we work in departments where you're so busy firefighting in your own silos, and then once you get together, you just want to have your voices met, and it's those kind of things. So we try to do that, and I think it's amazing, to see how things have changed, and you can see those testimonials there that people actually have come back to, and these are not just feedback from our staff, but it's actually feedback from members of the public and patients. And obviously, we celebrate success within our own as well, and that's really, really fantastic. What about then joy at work? Recently we had a workshop at NHS Grampian where we talk about joy at work. I guess the question is to yourselves, what do you do at the moment to kind of create that joy at work for your own teams? We set up a domestic supervisor development program, a Mentor of the Year award, try to put in suggestion trees. These things don't take too much effort. These things just require some commitment to really think about your staff and try to make them happy with doing the things that we've got, using resources that we have. I just want to share with you one last thing before I close, in terms of a case study. So, meal service improvements at Royal Aberdeen Children's Hospital. We know that children are picky at times when it comes to food, isn't it? I certainly was, and I'm probably still am today. Again, so having to order your meals from a paper menu hours before you can actually eat, I guess that wasn't really the best solution for the young patients at Children's Hospital. And there's also that social aspects as well to be considered, isn't it? To encourage children who are probably able, come out of their beds and actually out of their rooms to interact with other kids, making new friendships. So we were looking into those kind of things. And then a catering group was formed, and we tried to think about some of the studies that goes along with it to try and see how we can actually change that mindset. And it was quite challenging, but the outcomes was just phenomenal. The children now really look forward to the arrival of the trolley. With lots of smiles in their faces when they see the food, the cart and the cooks. The meals are actually getting prepared in trolleys in front of them, so they cannot actually wait to come out and actually see fresh from the piece and actually take something them. Because something, hospital food, the perception of that is actually quite a constant challenge, isn't it? If you're actually sick going into hospital, you've been thinking about those things because, well, that's probably the last thing in your mind to think about. But as part of your getting well, it's always that mindset to be changed. And I guess with children, it's pretty much the same thing as well. And because of that implementation, we saw such a massive change in that confidence to what we want to produce. And so there you go. So that's Callum, that's 10 years old, and that's Kaylee, 6 years old. And that's a trolley, that's a deli cart that was changed as far as the initiative's change is concerned. What he says, I don't like butter in my sandwich, but now I can ask the sandwiches how I like it. It's quite a lot to pick from, and I like to have their hams and tuna rolls. And we collaborated with Archie Foundation, which is a charity organization. That it says here, look, the CEO, David Cunningham, says, hospital food deserves a lot more credit than it gets. But tempting young appetites in a hospital environment requires just a bit of lateral thinking. Okay? So I guess my take-home message is, before I close this, you need to understand your client's organizational values, the culture and the needs, and translating them, back to the ranch in terms of your FM sector. And maybe take this time to kind of review and redefine your FM strategy. Go back to the basics. Think about that ISO standard definition that you can. Maybe look into some of the words and nuances that it's actually trying to tell you. And also at the same time, think about your capabilities as well in-house. Is there an opportunity to develop that intelligent client function even further within your sector? And lastly, enhance the staff experience, right? So I guess, I don't know about you, but I get excited at the thought of how we as FM professionals can make a positive difference in every way. And I believe that the very fact that we're here today, attending this event is testament to sharing that same passion for the industry, whether you're in client or supply side. So no 2 days are the same, right? So I think we have many challenges ahead of us, but there's definitely a light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm sure you have many examples to tell your own story. So please feel to connect with me via LinkedIn or email or Twitter. I'll look forward to chatting with you. Thank you.